Hi everyone, and welcome to our webinar this evening. I'm Lena.
And I'm Elsa.
And we are the authors of Retrieving for All Occasions. So this webinar we will, well, you can ask anything you want. We prefer if you ask questions about gun dog training or dog training, of course. But we will follow you. And we have some questions that we had before the seminar that we have prepared some answers for. But you can ask us in the Q&A. Well, just write down your question and we will try to answer it.
Yes, so we're just going to start with showing you a bit of the background about Lena and me. We wrote the book Retrieving for All Occasions in 2012 in Swedish and then translated it to English a couple of years later. And both of us work part-time as gun dog instructors at the moment. Well, we do instruct in other things as well, but mainly focusing on gun dog training. So as Lena just said, today's webinar is about asking anything you want. If you're joining us on Facebook, we'll try to answer those questions as well. But if you want to make sure that we have time to answer your questions, please join us via Zoom because they will see the questions more easily.
Okay, yeah, let's begin. Or do you want to say anything else before we start?
No, I think we should get going.
Yes, and our first question is from Lisa. And her question, I read her question so you all can hear it. I have just begun to teach my 6-month-old lab the stop signal. He's very good at it when he's close to me, but when he's a few meters from me, he first wants to go to me before he sits. How can I do so he sits where he stands a bit from me? Well, do you want to start? Or
I can start. Yeah, I say that's a quite common problem to start with when you start teaching the stop whistle, because you tend to start teaching it when the dog is close to you. So it's very natural for them to come by your feet and sit there. One of our first things that we usually do is actually have a helper having a flat collar and a lead on the dog, so that the helper could just loosely hold the lead when the dog is standing a few feet away from you, and then you blow the stop whistle. If the dog walks towards you, the helper will just tighten the leash slightly, not pulling or anything, just holding it slightly until the dog sits, and then you reward the dog. You repeat that a couple of times until there's no tension in the leash any longer, and the dog sits as soon as it hears the stop whistle. Then you can increase the distance. So that is one way. But Lena, we have a few other ones.
Yeah, well, one of my favorite ways is that I very often work with platforms, place boards. I teach my dog to love to go on a platform in any way, in any kind. It can be like a small box or something where the dog can sit. And when they love to go to the platform and sit on the platform, I just reward them there, and then I add the stop signal when they go to the platform. So they sit and I blow the whistle at the same time. And then I increase the distance between me and the platform and just send the dog away, saying yes, and the dog goes away to the platform, who he loves. And then I blow the stop whistle. And then I take, then it's very good to have a helper the first time. I send the dog maybe like 3 times to the platform, blow the stop whistle from maybe 3 meters or something. And then I ask my helper to take the platform away, so the dog can go to the spot where the platform was before. And then I try to blow the whistle again. And you can use that I mean, you can send the dog for 30 meters to the platform if you want to, and you can back chain it. So you can start with close to the platform and then go further and further away. So that is another way to teach them to, it's possible to sit away from me. It's not, as Elsa said, it's quite common that the dog wants to come close to us because they get so much reinforcement close to us in all type of training, actually. So they have to just understand that it's possible to sit or do things away from us.
Yeah. And then you could, of course, do things where letting, for example, your helper reward your dog when the dog is at a distance away from you, so you don't have to run as much back and forth. And also reverse luring can be very helpful if the dog knows that, to actually make the dog stay where he or she is, and then you go to the dog and reward it where it is.
And you can use reverse luring too when you go to the dog. Sometimes the dog wants to come closer to you when the dog see you coming closer to him. So open your hand and walk and do reverse luring at the same time. Then you help the dog you inform the dog that this is right. Just stay where you are. It's right. Many dogs that I see can be a little bit insecure when you train this because they are not so used to being trained on a distance from us. So if you want to make them really sure of themselves, do other things, tricks and so on, where the dogs do things a little bit with a distance from you. I recommend that.
So Lisa, we hope that would answer your question and give you some ideas about what you can train more. So then we've got a few questions that we have prepared. I think we're going to start with one of them. And Lena, this one about recall. We got the question about how can I improve my dog's recall?
Yeah. Well, if the dog have a good recall, then it means freedom for the dog. So I think it's a good everyday life thing for the dog to know. And of course, if you do gun dog training, it's very important to have a good recall. I mean, you have to be able to recall the dog from a really hard situation with birds and so on involved. So the first thing to think about is that you of course will do lots of successful recalls, lots of rewards, so the dogs know that it's a very good thing to do, of course. And also you also need to have a really great reward, and you can have a great reward and then you can have a great reward. So if you are practicing this and then you are out walking with your dog and something happens that is really hard and the dog listen to your recall and come to you, then you have to give them an extra good reward. So bring something really good, smashing good with you. I know, Elsa, you used to have some cat food in a small bag, but don't you?
Yeah. Yeah, there's a great small bags that you could buy with wet cat food. So you could, they're completely sealed. So you could have them in your pocket for quite some time before using them. And when that great moment happens, the dog responds beautifully to a very difficult recall. You could just bring it out and reward them.
So another thing that is very important is, of course, that you will try to avoid the dog from rewarding himself, because there is so much self-reward, of course, in running to something that the dog loves to do, and you have to stop them from doing that. Otherwise, you will anti-train your own training. So I have a friend that she had a leash or a long line, a 10 or 12 meter long line on her dog in 1 year. And I mean, that was a boring year because she had to train every walk if she wanted to have the dog off leash. But it was really good because after that she had a perfect dog that this dog was really, really interesting in hunting animals in the wild, and of course they are not allowed to do that. So after 1 year of really good rewards and good recalls and stopping the dog to reward itself, she had a really great recall. And the last thing is practice with distractions. And this is a main thing when it comes to Elsa and me, my training. We start with distraction training when our puppies are really young. Do you want to add something about that, Elsa?
Yes, I think that one is really, really important, so that we don't go out into the forest or out on a walk and just train in real life situations to start with, so that we actually set up situations where we can control the distractions. And spend a lot of time doing that with many different distractions. So when a real distraction that we can't control show up, we'd ideally want the dog to believe that, oh, she just added a new distraction. It might be the same thing that it usually is. I better just respond to that recall and come back to her.
Yeah. Okay, so now we had another question about dropping the retrieve coming up. It's Glenna who asked about her dog, who tends to drop the retrieve about 5 or 10 feet from me on the return instead of coming right into the hand. Very common. We see it all the time. And this could be complex or very easy. But the first thing that we teach our dogs is a very good hand target. So we want the dog to put his nose in our palm. And we do that like a play, so like a game. So the dog loves to run towards to us and pull his nose into our palm. And when they are like crazy about putting the nose in our palm, then we add an object. That is our first thing we start to train when it comes to that problem. But of course, we have other things that we do as well.
Yes, I think we just have to mention one of our favorite training aids, the reverse luring. We've just mentioned it once already, so let's mention it again. Because it's, as Lena said, it's very common that the dog will drop the object when there's treats nearby. So with the help of reverse luring, we teach the dog to hold something in its mouth even though there's treats nearby, because by doing so, the dog will get access to those treats. So just a quick of the reverse luring, open hand, showing the treat in my open hand means that you're doing the right thing. If the dog drops the object, I close my hand, pick up the object and make another try. Then show my hand again, open it when the dog holds the object, and make sure that I have the time to say, well, thank you, or dead, or whatever cue I use for the release, and reward the dog when it responds to that cue.
Yeah, so reverse luring is one of our, as Elsa said, one of our main thing and a very important training thing that we teach the dog when they are very young too, because it's like our training are built around this thing that reverse luring is. It means if you do as I want you to do, then you will get what you want, and if you control yourself, then you will get what you want, the reward. And the reward can be like treats or play or anything, running to your friend, take a bath, whatever, sniff. But it's a reverse learning is very helpful in other situations too. So if you want to teach a dog reverse learning, please go to our YouTube channel and our blog on retrievingforlocations.com, and you can find films and blogs about reverse learning, because we love reverse learning, so we have wrote a lot about it.
Great. So we got another question from Monica, which is training a flat-coated retriever. Is it different?
Different from what?
From training the Labradors or the Tollers?
Or the Cockers.
The Cockers, they are very complicated to train, I think.
Yeah. Well, it depends on how you who you ask, I think. No, it's not different. I mean, of course it's different. They are different individuals, and you can see maybe you can see different things. We used to say that the cockers are like creative and a little bit, they have a lot of fantasy when you work with them, and you can compare them with a flat-coated retriever, maybe a little bit immature. They take many years to be grown ups and so on. But of course we meet flat-coated retrievers that are very serious from the beginning and so on. And we also meet very many Labradors that are very serious, as they are like 10 weeks and like, okay, I'm with you, and they have their costume and so on, already on and ready to learn. But I think the most important thing is to see what dog do you have in front of you, not what breed do you have in front of you, maybe a little bit, but
Yeah, I think it's about what you prefer what type of dog. But no, we use the same training methods and training philosophy, no matter what breed we're training. But then, of course, we adapt all training to the individual that we have in front of us.
yeah. Okay, so and another question from Lisa. How do you introduce different whistle signals at the same time, or one signal at a time? Is it confusing for a young dog to learn stop, recall, and search at the same time? That is a very good question. I think the most confusing thing is when you have signals that are very similar. So the only thing you should think about is that don't have for example, Nasdaq.
Hunt whistle.
A hunt whistle that reminds of the recall, because then the dog will come into you in front of doing the hunt whistle, so holding an area. So I used to say, if you have a stop that is one signal which is quite long, like beep, then maybe you should start your holding an area, the hunt whistle, with a longer signal, so it doesn't remind the dog of the recall, which often is shorter, more like 2, 3, 4, 5 short signals. So I think that is the most important thing to think about. Or what do you say, Elsa?
Yes, I agree. Definitely remembering to having distinct signals so the dog could differentiate between them. But otherwise, no, we tend to start teaching the cues almost at the same time, but we usually do it in different situations. Usually the breeder will have started with the recall already when giving the pups food. So hopefully we'll get the pup that is already accustomed to the recall whistle. So then we just continue to do that when we're feeding the dog, and we use it on our walks and reinforce the dog a lot for responding to it. And then when we start teaching the stop whistle, we usually do that in a slightly different situation. We're probably standing still. We might start in the garden before bringing it out on the walks. So as not to confuse the dog, we do it in different situations to start with before starting to mix them together. But we don't wait very long with starting to teach the dog the different the whistle cues.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Oh, we have a cocker question from Katrine. We have a test in Denmark where my cocker has to sit 50 meters from me for 1 minute. Then you have to recall the dog, and when it is 20 meters from you, you have to stop the dog within 5 meters. My dog continues until he's closer to me, about 8 meters. Any good advice how to teach my dog this exercise without ruining his recall?
Well, I think that is, we already have talked about this when we talked about the stop signal in one way, because well, I think this is a very good example of using where you can use the platform. So put the cocker 50 meters away, the platform 20 meters away, and recall the dog, and try to blow the whistle when it's on the platform. But of course, don't start there. You start much closer, so he knows the concept about you are a bit away from the platform, and he is supposed to stop at the platform, and then you just add distance. And don't increase the distance, both the distance to the dog platform or platform you at the same time. I would say that it could be a good idea to try. Have you
Yes,
any
yeah, I'd
ideas?
try the same. Reward placement could be one thing as well. Having a food bowl behind the dog, so that when the dog has stopped, you give it a go ahead cue or a back cue, so it turns around and takes the reward from behind itself.
Mm.
And if possible, when you know that you are going to stop the dog, you could use a different recall cue, a cue that means you're going to stop soon. For example, recall the dog with your voice instead of with the whistle. If the test doesn't demand that you only use your whistle, then you have to do it anyway. But then you also need to reward, straight recalls without stopping the dog a lot as well, so the dog doesn't start to get hesitant and anticipating the stop before you actually blow the stop whistle.
Yeah, that's a good point. Mm.
Okay, we have another question from Lisa. In what order do you teach your young dog the different things? If you want to train lines, do you want to have a good stop and search before you do that? My dog sometimes run over the dummy and very far away, so I have to recall him.
If you want to train lines, do you want to have a good stop and search before you do that? No, actually, no, I don't. I think we start to train all things at the same time.
As much as possible at the same
Yes,
time.
yes, as much as possible. So I think that the most important thing is to teach the dog one thing separately, so they are really sure and self-confident when you do whatever you do, actually. Um,
I'd say that we usually start with, for example, with the casting, sending the dog to food bowls. So then we don't need neither the stop nor the hunt whistle to start with that. So we could do that already with the puppy just before feeding time, and using the food bowl when we're anyway going to feed the dog. So that way we don't even have to have the delivery to hand, or the dog knowing how to bring back the dummy in a good way before starting teaching the straight lines.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think maybe, Lisa, I don't know you, but I don't think I know you. Maybe you do it a little bit hard for your dog now. So try to think before you start your training. Try to think, okay, what is the main thing I want to train here, and how can I set up the situation so the dog will succeed? So then you will not get the situation where you can't solve the problems that occur.
Yep. And also, if the dog runs over the dummy, it might be that it hasn't got the scent of the dummy, so it actually hasn't realized that it has to stop and hunt. And if that is the problem, then I would probably work more on the stop whistle to stop the dog when it's in the right area. If the problem is that the dog just loves his straight lines and continues to run, and you want him to find it easily, I'd use quite visible dummies, white dummies, or a dummy with a sock over, so the dog will actually find the dummy very quickly when it reaches the area. So I don't have to do all the things at once. And if I want to practice the hunt whistle, then I might start with making the dog sit in the area, blow the hunt whistle, and then I have hidden the object very, very well. So the dog gets to practice just the hunt whistle before I put all the parts together.
Mm.
Okay, I think we have some more questions on the stop whistle that we have prepared. So I'm going to show you something that we've written about that. It was about how can I stop my dog when he's busy hunting? And I think we'll say almost the same thing that we said with the recall before. Practice with distractions, lots of distractions that you can control. We could use treats, we could use scent from game or dummies that we put on the ground. Then we start at a close distance. We show the dog that there's something very interesting on the ground. And then we let the dog sniff that interesting area and sniff and sniff and sniff and sniff until the dog is done. And for the first couple of repetitions, that means that the dog almost lifts its head and looks at us. Then we blow the stop whistle. And the next time, we blow the stop whistle slightly earlier, just when we see that the dog is about to be finished and about to lift his head from the area. Then we blow the stop whistle and reward the dog a lot. And then gradually, we try to blow the stop whistle earlier and earlier when the dog is more and more busy. Since we have this area that we know that the dog will run to and stay in, we could also increase the distance between the dog and us. So as the dog gets more and more confident, we walk further away from the area, so we're further away when we blow the stop whistle. I think that is one of our favorite exercises, actually, to teach the dog to respond to the stop whistle when it's very busy hunting.
And you can almost do the same thing when you train the recall, actually. Just when you want to train distractions and recall training, just put some treats or some scent on the ground and recall the dog when you think they are ready and they can hear you and so on, and then you just make it harder and harder. So this is it's a good exercise to use in both ways.
Yeah, and for recall as well, because when you've been practicing recall for a while, you will end up with a dog just walking very, very close to you. So you can't do another recall. But this way, you could actually leave the dog because it's busy for looking for things, and then you could increase the distance between you and the dog and get to actually practice a recall when the dog is busy. Because just making the dog sit, walk away, and then recall it, that's not what a recall will look like in real life.
No, true.
We got a question from Liz Hiles. She says, I find myself with a dog who has no enthusiasm for learning proper gun dog training. I'm interested though, so do you have any ideas which exercises I can adapt to short sessions in the living room? She's a Sussex Spaniel with short legs.
So I got curious. Is she interested in your rewards? Can she play tug? Can she play? Develop your rewards and teach her to play, I think. Will be my first answer. And then you can, if you have good rewards, then you can train whatever you want, I think. So what does your spaniel like to do? And of course, when you have a dog that is not so motivated, try to do really, really short sessions. It can be like 30 seconds or even not that long. If he or she is interested in treats, try to, but not in play, try to play with the treats. You can put a little
a short string.
Yeah, thank you. Short string around the treat and pull it on the floor. And if the dog like sniffs after it or use his paws, then bingo, then you have the beginning of a play. And then you can develop that to play with other things after that. So be patient, develop your rewards, I would say.
Yep, and some short, nice exercises that you could do in your living room is, for example, the hand target that we talked about before, reverse luring. And you could also, to increase the dog's interest in training, you could teach it a lot of tricks. It's not gun dog training, but it will make the dog realize how valuable you are. So then later on, when you suggest something and that you want to train, and the dog knows, oh, training with her is usually very fun and very interesting. So it will make the dog ready to learn other things as well. So tricks training is really great to do.
Yeah. The more you teach a dog things, the more teachable it will be. So tricks is really great. I have to be much better with that. My first dog is a really good. He has so many tricks, but my fifth dog, he's not that good. I'm lazy.
Yeah, I have the same thing. My first dog, or second dog actually, she knew so many different tricks. I think 15, 20 different ones. And then Keen, what does he know? I haven't even taught him to remove the socks, which I've taught all my
No,
other dogs. So I should have that as my homework, actually teaching some tricks to him as well.
me too. Me too.
Okay, so I think we're doing one last question, and it's Paula who asks, how do I get my lab more interested in retrieving? He gets distracted as he runs out and then ignores the dummy when he gets to it. Have used a snack dummy, which has helped, but I need to build desire for a dummy or toy, etc.
Yeah, well, that's a good question, and it's. I think you are on the right track when you think that you want to build desire, but I think it's more important that build desire to the reward actually. So try to find really, really good rewards, and then he will pick up anything. That sounds very simple. I know that it's not so simple, but really, actually, it's. I think sometimes we don't understand how important that thing is about the good rewards. So, but of course, you can also get teach him to pick up things that he's more interested in. I use those small tennis balls with rabbit skin around them, and dogs that tend to be a little bit like your lab, as you describe your lab, loves them so much that they don't want to deliver them. So that is a good thing to try things. What does he like to carry when he is at home? Does he have any favorite shoe or something?
Yeah, if you could get the dog interested in carrying one object, you could try to transfer that to other objects. And I would also recommend practicing the things that you don't need to use objects to practice. Practice that without objects. For example, casting. If the dog is food motivated, use food balls instead. And then when the dog is more interested in dummies, then you could switch to retrieving, putting a dummy instead of the food ball. So you don't have to have a dummy at the end. You could send the dog for the food ball or for its favorite fluffy toy or something else.
Yeah.
And it might also be that the dog could retrieve one or two dummies and then it's not that interested anymore. So use dummies for the first 2 repetitions and then you use food balls. And the next time perhaps you could use dummies for 3 repetitions and then you use food balls. So you mix it. So that the dog keeps up its interest.
So let's take just one more question because I know we can
Yeah.
answer it very short, briefly. Catherine writes, when you introduce left and right casting, do you practice both directions at the same time or start with, for instance, left for several weeks? Yes, we practice
Both.
both.
Yeah,
Just
that was a quick question. Yes,
yeah.
definitely. I use we'll perhaps do 5 to the left and 5 to the right, and then we take a break, and then we do 5 to the right or 2 to the left. So definitely start both of them at the same time.
Yeah.
That was a quick question.
Yes, of course.
Yes, so the final things that we just want to share with you, and we unfortunately we don't have time to answer any more questions at the moment, so we definitely have to come back and do more of these sessions. It's so great to see which questions you want us to answer. We just wanted to show you some news. We have a new study guide based on the book Retrieving for All Occasions, which is intermediate. So it's a bit more difficult setups in this study guide than in the previous one, which was the foundations. It is based on the book though, so you need both the book and the study guide to use the study guide to its full extent. And then we've also released several new online courses. We have stop whistle, heel work, holding an area, and casting. And there are a few early birds spots left, so then you'll get 30% discount on those spots if you're quick to sign up. So go on to our web page, retrievingforoccasions.com, and you'll find them.
Yeah, and also we have a 20% discount on all online courses that aren't already discounted. So use the coupon code RFAO QA2101 and buy before January 31st.
So thank you all for joining us tonight. We really enjoyed your questions, and we want to wish you a very good luck with your training and hope to see you again soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye. See you.